So, hi all. I'm Kieran Downey, General Manager of Moorepark Technology Limited, and I manage the pilot plant facility, which I will refer to today as MTL. So, some of you probably know us as MTL. So, today I will give you a brief background, speak about some considerations into how our pilot plants and pilot plants in general can help with scale up for the food and drink industry. So MTL was set up back in the early 90s as a public-private partnership by both Teagasc and the dairy industry, where they all required a dedicated cost-effective pilot plant to meet their growing R&D needs. So today, MTL contains versatile processing equipment across a wide range of applications, not simply focused on dairy products. It is unique because of its size and scale and our access to the Teagasc researchers. The ability for us to transfer the technologies developed by researchers as well as operate at a scale relevant to the factory setting is hugely important to all our clients. So where are we? So we're just off junction 14 on the M8 near Fermoy. And here you can see where we're based on the Moorepark site, which is home to the Teagasc Animal and Grassland Research Centre and also the Food Research Centre. We work closely with both parties where we have access to high quality fresh milk from the national dairy herd all year round. For example, in a recent project, we have worked with the animal research team who have identified a particular number of cows with a tailored diet. We've taken that milk and processed it into a number of dairy products, and then the final analysis was performed by the research team and technical staff in the Food Research Centre. This research was published comparing the diets of Irish cows versus those on the continent, whose diets vary because they are housed internally most of the year. So where does MTL typically fit in new product or process development? So a typical stage gate approach is used by some of our clients shown here. We see ourselves as a gateway from research to product launch, whether that is a retail product on the shelf or an ingredient in a product or business to business sales. This is not a straight line approach either. For example, in cost engineering of current products or optimizing processing conditions, the support from MTL can be during the development, but also the optimization of the products already on the market. So we're a service provider, first of all, and whereby we offer a variety of services ranging from pilot plant rental, technical assistance through contract R&D and pre-commercial manufacture. We're set up in a modular fashion, so a number of companies can be on site in any one time, and confidentiality is key in this arrangement. Every day we need to be flexible and versatile in our approach to where, and in this we work shift hours, and we're also changing the process flows every day to meet customer needs. There are a number of ways in which companies can work with us. So it can be as simple as MTL and the client alone, where we provide the trained operatives and the facilities to produce product. Our technical support can provide troubleshooting advice at the planning or in-process phase. Secondly, is where we have input from Teagasc in the form of technical advice or analytical support, or via joint research project, which is Teagasc-led. Also, companies can hire space and operate solely out of MTL in the startup phase. And finally, another offering we have is what we call plug and play, where a space can be rented on a daily basis or a longer term. And in this scenario, equipment can be brought on site, which plugs into our overall facility utilities, take advantage of our quality management system, utilizing maintenance and operation support if required. So on this slide is one such example of plug and play, where a cheese company wanted to produce European style cheese, which is not common in Ireland. So we had 80% of the equipment required, and they had the finishing molds and packaging units. We were able to install the equipment and set up the entire production line, which is currently being launched with an Irish multiple. So clients use pilot plant facilities for rapid development, which saves on time, saves on duplication of resources, and significant operating and quality costs. In addition, these companies require pre-commercial scale-up, which may not be available on their own site. Pilot plant facilities can meet this need and solve technical issues without blocking any of the commercial plants or facilities. These facilities enable businesses to be closely involved in co-development. So our clients want the learning experience. It is more than simply just getting the job done. They want to learn how it's done. Working with technical experts in the pilot plant facility like MTL enables transfer of that knowledge to your staff. Marketing experts say that the ability to go from concept to prototype in a few days is considered a significant benefit in accelerating the product development cycle and also responding to market trends and opportunities. To that end, MTL has a strict quality assurance system in place to ensure production meets the requirements of retailers or the end user. MTL is a licensed food production facility under the Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine, and is ISO 22000 accredited, as well as having specific customer validation and accreditations on particular products such as kosher, halal, and also BRC. So the pilot plant in MTL is sufficient scale to accurately simulate commercial food processing manufacture. And in the slide I've shown here, I've mentioned some product areas which can be produced in MTL. The equipment used in these processes can also be adapted to produce more than the product shown here. For example, in dried food ingredients, that can be an infant formula powder, it could be a flavor which could be added to potato crisps, it could be vitamin-enriched powder which may be added to a sports drink, or it could even be an extract from seaweed which has a health benefit. We can produce non-alcoholic beverages such as recovery drinks, non-dairy beverages, fortified drinks for the elderly, and also alcoholic drinks like cream liqueurs. These can be produced at a small scale to develop and optimize the formulation, and in some cases at small commercial level for the shop shelf. Other products such as fermented products, soups, sauces, relishes, mayonnaises can all be manufactured in MTL. So new product and process development usually follows a stepwise progression to large-scale manufacture. And at small scale, pilot plant, this is where fast prototypes can be made. And there's typically constant experimentation at this stage. The simplest trials at this scale are already enough to point out problems in the product's initial formula. In intermediate pilot plant trials, the main positive results that the company has with this scale are in the refining and defining of the process. Optimization of the processing parameters can be worked on, samples can be produced for the market, and information can be gathered around equipment requirements. At large scale or pre-commercial scale, the company can evaluate how defined the production process is and if there are adjustments to be made in order to optimize the production chain. By reproducing at this scale, the company is able to investigate the capacity of product stress, that is, the production conditions and when the process is nearing its limits. This kind of analysis is used to check the product stability and if there are any changes in the functionality when the production scale is next to its maximum, and how it behaves in extreme or emergency cases in the production line. It might surprise you, but we see this regularly in our pilot plant where equipment gets blocked and it needs to be stripped and cleaned. That's all in a day's work in MTL. This would cause significant downtime if it happened at the factory scale, but here the client knows the limit of its product and it is seen as a very positive result. So precision is the main word for large-scale trials. A company wants to ask final questions, make its verdict regarding a product's functionalities and how it behaves in the production line. In MTL, it also allows for client staff members to be trained on equipment which replicate their own factory environment. So the next slide shows the next slide is just got a couple of examples, but MTL is a very large array of equipment and our website moorepark.ie is a good place to see what we have. But we're constantly adding equipment to improve our offering and also to meet our client needs. Recent additions have seen two alternative drying technologies, one based on microwave vacuum technology from InWave. An example of a product can be seen here on the top right of the slide. That's Moon Cheese. That is sold in the US and Canada and is aimed at the snacking market. Our next step in MTL is also the commissioning of a VOM turbo dryer, which is an alternative to spray drying, as not all concentrates behave well when spray dried. This technology should be an exciting step initially for the dairy processors, as it will allow hassle-free drying of very sticky ingredients, but it can also be used for drying other waste streams from different products, currently not possible with conventional spray drying, thus potentially adding value to high starch and high fiber products. So what's happening now? We all heard the news last night. MTL is still operational during this pandemic. We are an essential business as we manufacture ingredients and products for our clients. Yes, we have adapted to ensure the safety of our staff and clients as well as maintaining our business. Our staff work shifts so as to minimize contact in the pilot plant, and when possible, we offer remote trials using a range of different communication tools. Our technical staff and operators relay to clients during the day the progress on their trial work, and this has worked very well in the last number of months. So We have also initiated a project with Teagasc where we will trial HoloLens technology for Microsoft. So we'll be doing this in the next couple of months, and hopefully this will be a great addition to our service. So this will allow companies to view the process in real time, and the company will see exactly what the operator sees via headset. For example, operators can show the customer what the cheese curd looks like via the headset prior to the cutting stage, or in drying of a powder, the customer can see the control systems and visualize the spray dryer settings. So from what you can gather so far, we've learned that pilot plant trials is a small scale project that is used to test feasibility, duration, costs, and the risks associated with full scale production. And with that in mind, the approach I'm going to outline today is one which we have found has worked well based on feedback from a number of clients in the last few years. It forms a platform in which best results can be gained from pilot plant trials, whether the outcome is to proceed to the next stage, return to the laboratory, or scrap the idea altogether. What I'm saying here is that poor decisions can also be made if you haven't got your homework done. Like the great Roy Keane says, fail to prepare, prepare to fail. And that can be scrapping a great idea because the time is not taken to plan the trial properly, or vice versa. We're moving too quickly to the factory based on a deemed successful trial, but without collecting all the necessary data. Firstly, the purpose of the trial needs to be developed and written down. This should be done for a number of reasons. Number one, until it's written down, the flaws may not always be visible. And number two is that when others need to know the purpose, and by others I mean your colleagues, the pilot plant operational staff, and perhaps your quality people. So an example of a purpose might be to investigate an alternative treatment process. Here, communication may be needed with the quality personnel, as the functionality of the food or the functionality of the product or the food safety of the product may be compromised. The process may need to be revalidated. Technical staff and finance staff may need to be aware so that all energy or operational inputs can be recorded and operational costs may need to be noted. We have found that the more research the client company can do beforehand, the better the outcome on the day. Sometimes the suck it and see approach can work, but then you do not understand the changes made and the potential impact upon other aspects of the product or process. Is most likely it can't be replicated on the client site. So a structured, well thought out approach is best. On planning trials, you need to develop a scope document. It may sound tedious, but again, if communicated to all involved in the trial, it focuses the mind of all those who need to know. A trial request form can be used in MTL, which will enable the operations manager to schedule the trial and ensure that all the equipment and ancillary pieces are available on the dates requested. You should also develop a trial protocol to be followed by operational staff. This should include equipment to be used, a raw material list with specific weights, potential issues with ingredients, and also include key operational parameters and information regarding timings if they are critical. Consider what essential data needs to be recorded, the frequency, and create a sampling and analysis plan before the trial starts. Consider the size and design of the equipment and how that can be scaled up to a co-packer or to your own site. On the day of the trial, please meet the staff involved at the start of the day and provide them with the protocol, record any observations which may be of value later, record run lengths, energy used if available, the chemicals used in the cleaning which may be useful for capital investments or operating costs at a later date. In reporting, after the trial, you should make sure you make use of the information gathered on the day. The data should be combined in an easy to follow report describing the process and equipment used thoroughly. Make sure this report is given to the relevant people quickly and analyze the samples without delay, as this is required for accuracy and confidence in the results. Consider any limitations of the data collected. For example, if it is a batch process, what will happen in a continuous mode? And finally, what are the next steps needed to scale up or even repeat? So what we find most useful for our clients is to ensure that at the very least, you should give enough information when booking a trial. We here in MTL will ask our clients to complete a trial request form, and I'll show you an example of this in a few minutes. What we find works is at the end of the day of the trial, the operator and the staff member assigned to the project along with the client will also complete a trial completion form, which captures information which, if left, may be forgotten. A few days after the trial, we recommend a follow-up call with MTL management. This is good practice, again, to close the loop and ensure that everyone is aware of the next steps. So on the next slide, I've just taken a snapshot of a part of a trial request form. And as you can see here, it's just a snapshot, so it doesn't have the whole lot. But as you can see, you have the objective, the description, any problematic ingredients, and information on the raw materials delivery dates or details. This is vital to allow pilot plant staff to be fully prepared for the upcoming trial. In the description, the order of the batches is detailed, and for example, the control and the alternative batches are listed, so no time is wasted and value for money is achieved. The next slide is a separate trial completion document. And again, it's pretty simple, but relevant information is captured. In this example, the objective of the trial wasn't achieved, but it is clear that the ingredient caused difficulty. That was disappointing at the time, but when people know, then a solution can be found. In another case, a follow-up document shows the failure was because of a chemical analysis spec was out of range, and it was because the resin used was not performing. So the learning here is the next trial, a new resin or a different resin should be used. So finally, Enterprise Ireland have some good supports for companies at the moment. For small companies, the innovation program is still open and is open until the end of the year for €5,000 grants or a 50-50 grant up to €10,000. I have listed a number of grants available on the slide, and a lot of these were already in place by EI, but they have amended them to make them more accessible now in COVID times. For example, the Agile Innovation Grant may be of interest to companies as it supports the development of new or of substantially improved products, services, or processes, where the total project cost is less than 300,000. It's a pretty straightforward online application form with fast track approval, and that's from EI themselves. So they also have sustaining enterprise funding available, so it'll be worthwhile speaking to your development officer. The contact details for Enterprise Ireland are shown should you wish to know more about them. So thanks very much. That's just a very brief overview of considerations for pilot plant trials and what you should have planned and put in place before you come on site to any pilot plant, and then what you need to record and report afterwards to ensure that the best possible outcome can be achieved. So thanks very much. I'll hand you back over to Karen.
Thanks, Kieran. That was great. So it was the overview. So we've got Eddie O'Neill coming on there in the picture, and John Hunter. So John Hunter is the CEO in MTL, and so we have some questions which I had actually forgotten to mention at the beginning, but we have some questions anyway to start us off, and I have quite a few as well. So Eddie O'Neill works in food industry development, based in Moorepark, but all around the country, works with a lot of different products. And John, you've been there a few years as CEO in MTL as well. So what we're going to do is I'm going to stop sharing and we're going to have everyone up on screen. So I'm going to direct some questions to you. We've got some questions that came in, and as I said, I've got a few myself. And just for you, Kieran, first, just maybe remind us again of the type of analysis so that can be done in either in MTL or in the wider Moorepark site that can help on the product development journey.
Okay, so in the pilot plant itself, we have two in-process laboratories. So that's for general in-process testing, so pH, moisture, total solids, some rapid protein, fat contents, just your general in-process testing that you would have in any factory. But I suppose the advantage of our pilot plant is we're on the Teagasc site, and they have a huge analytic capability within walking distance. So they have a technical support analysis lab where they actually produce standard protein, moisture, fat contents for standards for the dairy industry, but they have a huge array of analytic capability, both wet, chemical, and GCs, HPLCs, etc. So they can do a lot, and we utilize those on a daily basis. So the National Food Imaging Centre is also on site here. So that's a pretty good tool, not just for research purposes. Some of our clients here use it for in-process testing as well, where they can actually take a sample and they might be looking at the interaction between a number of different ingredients under a microscope and they can see how well all the ingredients are fitted together, and will they give the functionality then once the final product is produced. So there's a lot of capability in the analysis here on site.
Yeah, we actually had Lara and oh geez, Deirdre's going to kill me. They were here 2 weeks ago, so they let us all know about so that's available on the YouTube channel, and I think on the registration reminder it was further down in the email. So that's a really interesting some rapid. I know Eddie, you would have worked on that with the Imaging Centre on some confectionery products, I think, in the past to get some rapid answers.
Yeah, well, I worked on a particular chocolate project, and the company had a problem with shelf life and the stability of the fillings they were using in their chocolate products. And in conjunction with the Imaging Centre, we were able to look at the actual structure of the fillings. We were able to look at the fat profile in terms of, was it regular, was it sheared, and so forth. We're also able to look at sugar crystallization. And using the Imaging Centre, we were then able to do a series of trials with various ingredients in our formulation. And following those trials, Deirdre in the Imaging Centre then was able to look at the structure of the product, and it saved us literally months and months of work in terms of we were able to see immediately the effect of particular shearing, particular mixing, and particular ingredients and how they worked in a chocolate product. So we found that absolutely invaluable.
Thank you. So keep the questions coming. As I said, I forgot to mention that at the beginning, but we've got some quite a few more coming through. So just in your question and answer. So I've one here. So can you do batch or in-pack pasteurization trials for beverages, followed by shelf stability analysis for micro and sensory? So is that yourself, Kieran? Will I point that to you, and maybe John can follow up?
Yeah, so the particular question, if I'm understanding correctly, is regarding final product. So it's in the final packaging and the pasteurization is happening at that stage. So no, we can't. So the pasteurization processes that we have are inline. So they're actually in liquid form before they would go into the final packaging. So we can't do that. And there's a company in Dublin, they are HPP tolling, so they would do that type of work. And on the shelf life analysis, we would either outsource that to a company, but I know yourselves in Ashtown also have that capability for certain products. Is that correct, Carol?
Yeah, as part of the product development, and the week after next, we've got someone talking on that, so helping you with your micro testing, and then some new innovative shelf life there in the prepared consumer food suite in Ashtown. So what we would do is we do recommend different. We've got lots and lots and lots of connections, to be fair to say, I'd say. So if there's something or one particular part of a process that we just can't facilitate, we totally recommend others and pass, because we want people to have a solution rather than, so we would pass people on. I'd say, John, would that be fair to say, if there was a particular?
Yeah, that makes exactly. We'll say, for example, as Kieran said, certain areas we don't have, and we don't have retort now, and we don't have HPP, but those areas are part of a process. We can normally link in with other suppliers to build the full chain, whatever's required.
Yeah, and the Prepared Consumer Food Centre in Ashtown has quite a lot of new pieces of equipment, well resourced there in the last couple of years. So there's a couple of questions in one here.
And
sorry, John.
I was just saying the question on shelf life is a question we get asked quite a lot, actually. And again, so it's something that we do try to advise people how to move on.
And I suppose it's the advice about how to put a shelf life trial together. And Kieran, you talked about getting all your ducks in a row before you start at the trial day. and your sampling plan, which would include sampling for shelf life, I presume.
Yeah, it's critical to have a plan, and like we see it too often where things aren't thought out, and that's no fault of anyone really. A lot of startup companies just wouldn't have that information. So we'll try and advise as much as we can, but to have a plan in place to cover all bases, particularly for samples like that. Shelf life is critical for most products. So just having a plan where the samples are going to go, when they're to be taken, that's vitally important.
Throughout the day, because once the trial day is finished, it's finished. You've especially at the moment when you're trying to work within the COVID regulations or guidelines.
Yeah, so with the companies, sorry, Carol. Yeah, so we do offer the remote working, and some companies take that up. Others want, they want to be hands-on. Some companies are comfortable with it, but it becomes even more important at that stage, because our operatives will work to a plan, and they'll take samples when they are detailed, but they're working on something different every day. So it's very important to have a detailed plan in that scenario.
Great.
If I can add one other thing also, Carol, is just, we'd say for the shelf life analysis, many customers start out to find what is the shelf life of the product, how long it will last. But then I suppose the next step is if they can find ways of rapid testing to give them indicators of has all the process been done correctly. So there are areas we'd help them with.
So would that be stability testing, that kind of moisture movements, John, that kind of thing?
Yes, things like that.
Okay, yes.
Exactly. So for example, simple enough ones would be water stability in a product, or even mold growth on a cheese, packed cheese, things like that. If you can incubate them at an elevated temperature, or exaggerate the worst market conditions so that you can rely on your shelf life analysis.
Okay. Where you talked about funding, so we've a cost question here, obviously. So there's a question about the cost of the facility. So maybe John, yourself, just ask about what it's a huge different array of work that can be done. So I'm presuming that there's no short answer to that question.
Yeah, it all depends. I think, as Kieran laid out earlier, depending on, I suppose, what trial work needs to be done, the detail of the project, how many operators we have to put at it, and I suppose the extensiveness in the plant, because we have a number of modules, such as Kieran mentioned, wet processing, drying, blending, mixing. So depending on how many modules you have to use and how much time and energy and expenses incurred in doing it, so that the price varies. So there's no really one size fits all, but because of the scale we are at and we have so many customers, our overhead is minimized because it's spread over. And I know everyone will say that, but we've examined our pilot facility against others, and the value you get in MTL, it's a multiple in other areas to do the same trial we do. Now, we still have to cover our costs and make sure we can reinvest in the plant. That's what we have to do to make sure we have an active R&D system. But we work with customers and get the best value for them by sitting down and working out how to try.
Can I jump in there? I've a great working relationship with MTL over many years. I've used the innovation voucher system from Enterprise Ireland to fund a series of trials using the cheese facility, cheese manufacturing facility in MTL, where the client brought their own milk on site. It was pasteurized on site, and then we manufactured a range of cheeses on site, and they were ripened on site. And these were all covered by the Enterprise Ireland Innovation Voucher System. And we did the same for developing cream cheese, yogurts, and non-dairy beverages, such as kefir and a healthy drink. The lady in Limerick, her name escapes me, but I have I have a great working relationship. But also, I use the innovation voucher system quite a lot, and we simply get a price from Kieran or John, and Trevor as well. We state clearly what we need to do, and we get a price back, and it's always been very, very fair, and we've always managed to come up with excellent products as well.
Yeah, and it goes back to Kieran's point. The more prepared you are, the more you've thought about your project and thought it out. And I think obviously the contact details are at the end. So for that person and anyone else, I'd email or phone John, Kieran, or Trevor to talk through their particular needs, I presume. Now, there's a question about how long you can use the facilities at any one time. So you facilitate startup and short trials, but Kieran, maybe you just bring us through some of the other permutations, combinations of things that people can achieve with yourselves.
Yeah, so I think I outlined the number of ways companies can engage, and that can be for a day's trial. It could be for a number of days. It depends on the complexity of the process. With regards to startups, we have done a lot of work with companies where they've developed their product and their process on site, and then before I suppose they can justify the capital commitment of maybe renting a facility themselves or building a facility to house their own equipment. We will, depending on the product and the process, they have based themselves on site for a number of months until they've built up enough market and justification to go out on their own. So it works different ways. Small companies can operate that, where they come in for a day, they may come back in again for another day in 2 months' time. It can be for a week. It depends on the complexity of the trials. We'll try and facilitate it as much as possible. As I mentioned, we can have a number of companies on site because it is a modular setup, which means that people, product, and equipment flow works, that confidentiality is maintained, and that's a key part of our business. And we have to be conscious of that at all times. So once we can maintain that, we can have companies in here for a number of days or weeks.
Yeah, and I think to add to what Kieran has said, Carol, is that if he mentioned customers can base themselves here for a number of months if required, and even at that, some customers who produce maybe a specific high-tech ingredient may want to just produce that part of their process here and ship that to add to their own inline production. So we can become an integrated part of their supply chain, really.
Okay, great. I just have one for you, Eddie, here. So what kind of technical support or NPD type of support? You mentioned that you work with clients. So what type of products or NPD would yourself or the wider food industry development?
Well, in MTL, they have a startup kitchen, and I have access to that kitchen as well in terms of product kitchen scale development. And we can take a range of products. For instance, I'm working at the moment on a sauce, and we work in the kitchen at sort of 5 kg levels, okay? And then when we're happy with our product development, we then move across to MTL, and we can upscale then from 5 to 50 to 100 to 200 to 400 and so forth in terms of product manufacture. And that's one of the big benefits that I have in terms of product development. And I work on a range of products, both dairy and non-dairy. But having the kitchen facilities on site is a huge benefit for me. It means then that I can take my product, literally walk across the corridor and upscale by several increments. And for me, that's a huge benefit.
Yeah, Kieran went through the different layers and levels and up to pre-production processing. When we're on that, so there is a question about confidentiality. So worried about confidentiality. Can you allay my fears? So, John or Kieran, whoever wants to jump in there.
Yeah, I suppose Kieran has outlined, we have modular units. I suppose behind all that, the first thing is everybody working in Moorepark Technology has a confidentiality clause in their contract, and our customers are protected by non-disclosure agreements. So that before we start, we're bound by confidentiality. Then within the plant, and that applies to the operators as well as to the management people. You move to the plant and we have modular units. So depending on what processes customers have, they're going to be in an area on their own, working on their project. Also, when we schedule customers in, you wouldn't bring the same type of customer on the same day. So for example, if you wouldn't put two infant formula manufacturers in at the same time, that would not work. So with scheduling, but more importantly, with our segregation of areas, and areas can be closed off using electronic cards. So you can only get access via a coded card to let you into that area. So we've put a lot of effort, and we understand it's one of the key, I suppose, requirements. People expend a lot of energy and cost in developing projects. They need to protect their IP.
Great.
Yeah, that's covered, Carol. Yeah, it's probably the main part of our business, confidentiality. If we weren't able to maintain that, we wouldn't be in business. So it's a key part of what we do every single day.
Okay, thank you. And there's one about accreditations and being able to abide by food safety or Department of Ag. You mentioned, Kieran. So what type of license or registration do you have?
Yeah, so I suppose Department of Agriculture approved food facility, so we can manufacture a product for the market. But our overall pilot plant has accreditation, is certified for ISO 22000, which is the food safety management system, which is quite comprehensive. We also, in the last 2 years, have spent a huge amount of resource in validating all of our systems here on site. For certain companies, when they come on site, they have a particular product that may need to be halal or kosher, or may need BRC accreditation. And then we will work with those companies and implement BRC, for example, or halal or kosher for their specific process. So we work to the same standards as a large food factory. It's the same processes that we go through every day. We have continuous improvement. We have lean systems. While we might be putting out tons of product every single day, the principles are the same. So we monitor our downtime, our preventative maintenance, our corrective actions. They all have to be looked at every single day to ensure that we're providing a good service to our clients. So then that all feeds into the quality system.
Yeah, so then that's a good mirror then for someone either at a startup phase. They can see how systems hang together and work together, and then for the biggies, I presume the confidence then that they can just bring it back into their factory and the same application, same rules apply then to them.
Yeah,
exactly.
And for example, like we have a food grade system, which I suppose the other side of that is you can't take a shortcut. If someone wants to do a quick snapshot trial, they still have to follow all the food safety regulations, because if we're food grade, we're food grade. You must respect the standards we have the whole time.
Okay. There's a question here about honey, but I might I might answer that directly. It's about identifying Irish versus non-Irish honey. So I'll answer that, and there's a postdoc question as well. So we'll send that directly. But we talked about Department of Ag. What are there any products or ingredients that people can't use on site because of your approval?
Yeah, so I might take that. So we don't allow meat or fish products on site. So you're probably in Carroll, in Ashtown, our colleagues in Teagasc have a very sophisticated pilot plant here where they handle those products. Also, allergens are they're on everybody's lips for the last number of years. So we have to control allergens coming on site. Obviously, dairy is an allergen, but we are primarily a dairy pilot plant. So we have an extensive allergen swabbing program in place. All our CIPs have been validated to ensure that there's no allergens remaining after any product has been put through the plant. Any company coming on site will get our allergen policy, and they'll also get an allergen declaration questionnaire where they have to identify if any of their ingredients are potential allergens. And then we have to make sure that they are controlled, and we have the systems in place to make sure that there's no cross-contamination. So meat, to answer the question, I suppose meat and fish are not allowed on site, and then it's careful management of the ingredients, the allergens in particular, coming on site.
Great. Okay. Thank you. So I think we just have time for one or two more. Storing ingredients on site, is that a possibility? So let's say I'm a company, somebody had asked if I need to use, you mentioned use it over a few different days. Is there the capability of being able to store maybe some dry ingredients on site?
So we have a goods in and goods out storage area. It's quite small, as you can imagine, and that's for two reasons. Number one, again, is confidentiality. Companies bringing ingredients on site, we want them on site only just before the trial begins, and any residual raw materials or finished product are taken away off-site after the trial. And that is because a lot of companies that use the facility could be competitors of each other, and also there's a space issue. If a company wants to store material on site, small amounts, maybe a pallet, because they're doing a number of trials over a month period, maybe a day, a week, we can facilitate that as part of the trial costs. Again, they would be put in a place where no other people can, clients can get access to. So we can do it, but we try and limit the amount that we do because of confidentiality and also because of the storage capacity that we have.
Okay, and I just have one more. So somebody had asked if they want to make something like cheese, can they use their own milk? Do they have to use the MTL? How would that work?
So either scenario. So I think I mentioned in the slides, we have access to high quality milk all year round because of where we are in Teagasc. But also we have clients who have specific milk themselves that from their own cows, and they or sheep or goat, they want to use that milk, and that can be taken on site. Again, when it comes on site, it will have to go through our intake. So it will need to be alkaline phosphatase tested after pasteurization, but even prior to that, antibiotic tested, and just some general intake requirements around temperature, etc. But it is possible.
And would they need to notify would they need certification for the milk coming in, Kieran?
Yeah, good question, John. Yeah, that's true. So if they're transferring milk to another facility, then they will probably have to notify their Department of Agriculture inspector in that area.
Okay. Just even with the honey, I think, Eddie, you might have worked with honey before. Would you have worked with it in the MTL side of things? Is it difficult to work with?
I haven't worked with honey specifically, but I've used honey as an ingredient. And in terms of the question is always asked: is it Irish honey? Is it not? And we do have facilities on site. Kieran Kilcawley would be one of our senior scientists, and Kieran has the expertise on site to test honey. And by looking at terpenes, which are plant based, they can tell whether the honey is Irish, German, French, or whatever. So we do have facilities like that. Now it is expensive, but in terms of honey, I've only used it as an ingredient in product development.
And is it a difficult ingredient to deal with in a processing situation, a pilot plant situation?
It's very, very viscous. It's very, very viscous. So that causes its own problems. And funnily enough, as part of our NPD course last week, I brought up the using honey as a source, as an energy source for the growth of kefir, and it doesn't actually work. Doesn't work very, very well. It prevents the growth of microorganisms. So on one side, it's a healthy product, and on the other side, it can be not what you expect. So again, you need to know your ingredients if you're going to actually use them in product development.
So thank you very much. We've come to the end. So that was brilliant. Thanks a million. And but the website details, so you could have a look at all of the equipment that's there. And the last slide are John, Kieran, and Trevor's contact details. So myself and Eddie are finishing up a virtual product development course tomorrow. And like MTL, we're open for business virtually with our training courses and with our consultancy with people. So thank you all for tuning in. And this will be available within about a week, less than a week, on our YouTube channel. And we'll let you know and have a look out for our November webinar series. So thanks a million, people. Okay, bye.